The NHL Trade Deadline is officially here. We take a look at some of the moves the Wild have made leading up to the deadline by talking Nick Deslauriers, Jack McBain, as well as more on the Marc-Andre Fleury trade pursuit for the Minnesota Wild. Plus, we take a look at some names the Wild could target today, all on Locked On Wilds.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked On Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, Wyatt Garin stops by to prime us for the trade deadline with some potential targets for the Wild. We'll also talk once and for all about whether the Wild should continue their pursuit of Marc-Andre Fleury. We'll talk Nick Deslauriers. We'll talk everything NHL Trade Deadline, as we got a jam-packed day of episodes. So enjoy this of, I believe, 4 episodes dropping today. So enjoy number 2 for you here today. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, veteran Minnesota sports content producer, having covered every team in the state through their ups and their downs, now fully invested into your favorite hockey team here in the state of Minnesota, the Minnesota Wild, and joined once again by friend of the show, Wyatt Garin, gearing up for the NHL Trade Deadline coming later today. Wyatt, what's happening?
Exciting day. It's my favorite time of the year.
We get
this is Christmas Eve, man. This is Christmas Eve.
I'm
get excited.
Just the insanity that the NHL Trade Deadline brings to the table.
Yep.
We've already seen just a ton of moves throughout the weekend. We saw the big ones, Claude Giroux being sent to the Florida Panthers. The Wild have made a couple of moves so far leading up to the deadline. We'll talk Nick Deslauriers as well. And we've seen a lot of steep prices paid for a lot of teams, except Chuck Fletcher in the Giroux deal. And Seattle not getting a whole heck of a lot back for Giordano from the Toronto Maple Leafs. But, thus
Did you see the Hamonic deal today? Vancouver got a 3rd-round pick for Travis Hamonic. A 3rd round. I have no idea what Ottawa's doing. And then Ottawa sent Nick Paul to the Lightning for Matthew Joseph and 4th.
Oh, boy. Well,
I have no idea what is going on in Canada's capital, but
let's just start.
I'm here for the chaos, so
yeah, absolutely. Let's just start with some of the moves we've seen so far. Then we'll move into the Wild direction, where we'd like to see the team go, and so on. So, Wyatt, who are some of the winners so far in leading up to the trade deadline? I mean, I got to feel like Florida is one of them because they found a way to get Claude Giroux without a first-round pick this year because they overpaid in another trade. So I would imagine Florida is, but anybody else that has done well for themselves so far?
I'll give you an interesting one, which is Anaheim, because Anaheim's currently offloading assets, but their core with Zegras and Drysdale, guys like that, they're young and they're getting really good assets for, aging guys on their roster right now. So I think Anaheim, because they haven't even been that bad this year, so they make some right moves with these assets they're getting, and I like what they've done so far. And another one, I'd say Boston getting Hampus Lindholm from Anaheim.
Yep.
That's a big, and then they signed him to a huge ticket immediately. That he's gonna look good. Now they got McAvoy and Lindholm will play together, and they got Carlo locked up. So they got their top 3 locked up for the next half decade.
Wow.
That's a good blue line. That's a good blue line. Even without Tuukka Rask in the net anymore. That's a good blue line.
They're doing some things. The Central Division, speaking of, we got some we may have trades that come in throughout the entirety of this episode as we're recording it.
I got my phone right next to me just in case, because we were talking right before we hopped on together about McBain a little bit, and then, well, like an hour ago, we find out he's dealt for the second originally from Vancouver by way of Arizona.
The Nashville Predators making a minor move. They acquired Jeremy Lauzon from the Seattle Kraken. Here's an interesting one. I'm fascinated by this because I don't really get it. The Arizona Coyotes have traded goalie Scott Wedgwood to the Dallas Stars for a 4th-round pick in 2023.
I think that's just Dallas. I think at this point, Dallas knows they're going to be, within Central Division 3rd to one of the wild cards. They're just shoring up their goaltending because Ottinger's going to get the net in the playoffs. If I'm Dallas, Ottinger gets the net.
You'd think so.
Unless he totally shits the bed, go to Holtby. If one of them gets hurt, you have Wedgwood, experienced guy, can step in an emergency situation. So I think that's where they're going with that. And for a 4th-round pick?
Yeah, and it actually just getting if the Stars get into the playoffs this year, it becomes a 2023 3rd-round pick. So I don't know. It's not.
There's a price to pay for goaltending depth, especially right now. That's kind of hard to come by in the league right now. It's and Wedgwood's a guy that can step in if need be. So it's a good guy to have as your black ace goalie, if you will.
Anybody that has taken like a huge L so far the deadline, I mean, you could consider Philadelphia, but at the same time, I'm trying not to be super hard on the Flyers for the return because Drew had, he had the limited no movement clause, so
Drew had the organization by the balls.
Yeah,
he was out.
Dictated it.
And I think Owen Tippett's going to be a solid middle 6 option in the NHL. So I think that's a good asset to get back. I just, for the life of me, can't figure out why the Flyers looked at the 2015 Minnesota Wild and said, we want to use that GM and that head coach. But it's an interesting play for sure.
To say the least. I guess you could
any other L's, like I can't really think. Like no one's really gotten burned too bad yet, I wouldn't say. Except for the fact that Hamonic got a 3rd. Who even traded for Ottawa? Yeah. Sending a 3rd. And I will say the Lightning getting Hagel, that was a lot of assets back to Chicago for Brandon Hagel. But the Lightning might view him as a long-term middle 6 to bottom 6 guy. So I can understand why they would send that many assets, but
yeah.
But I can't think of any like major L's so far. There'll be one. Tomorrow there'll be one for sure.
There'll be plenty tomorrow. Plenty. So yeah, it's we've seen a ton of moves already. We'll see some overnight tonight and into the trade deadline on Monday, 2:00 Central Time, the official cutoff for the trade. So plenty going on. The Wild have made some moves already, and so when we come back, we'll talk about Nick Deslauriers, D'Lo, as his teammates are calling him. We'll also talk about the decision to move Jack McBain's rights to the Arizona Coyotes. More to come on our trade deadline primer here on Locked on Wild. Allow me to introduce you to a product I now use every day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I didn't have enough time in the morning for the traditional vitamin and supplement regimen. So now enter Athletic Greens in their AG1. One scoop gives you 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Every single thing you look for. Plus, it's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's the one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself. Athletic Greens is also climate neutral certified company, and in 2020, AG purchased carbon credits that supports projects protecting old growth rainforests. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into cold and flu season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's all you need. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Thank you for pushing the YouTube channel over 600 subscribers. Love to see it as we continue to climb the leaderboards. Once your first listen of the day is done, again, as I mentioned, we have just a ton of episodes coming up here today. We got the trade deadline primer, which you're listening to right now. We've got our week outlook with Alex Micheletti that dropped earlier today. We got our live trade deadline reaction show coming up at 2 o'clock Central. And then we have a preview of tonight's matchup against the Vegas Golden Knights coming for you. The Fatal 4-Way with 4 episodes here today. Wyatt, we are continuing to get people ready for the trade deadline once and for all. A lot of speculation over the last couple of weeks leading up to today. The Wild did go out and get Nick Deslauriers, who, as I alluded to in breaking the trade down this weekend, brings some much-needed physicality. And, you know, I was a little skeptical of the price initially in looking at the trade. But having heard Deslauriers' excitement for being part of this Wild squad and the Wild's excitement for him being part of the group as well, I love the move. And it seems like he's going to be just a menace for this team that they desperately need. So what do you think of bringing Nick Deslauriers into the Wild roster?
I really liked this move when I heard about it. Made the bottom 6 a little more crowded. You know, we're not going to see Connor Dewar as much. Maybe Bukestad sits out a couple of games. Duhaime sits out a couple of games. But I really like what they did with this. They went out and got Walmart version Marcus Foligno, basically, which is, I mean, hey, it's not, and not as a slight either. Like that, like that's a really good person to be in this league. Yeah, he's gonna be watching Kirill's back. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it was so interesting to where he came in and, you know, he has a nice sense of humor. He was pretty self-deprecating, and people were like, "So what are some of the skills that you bring to this Wild team?" He's like, "I don't really have a skill set.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go out and light people up." And
his nickname's D-Lo, but you compare him to Patrick Beverly, Pat Bev.
I compared him to Mr. Larson from Happy Gilmore, like
that too.
This just mammoth, like.
Just wearing the shirt, guns don't kill people, I kill people.
And that, like, so you look at it now, you've got the grief line, and they're going to be able to play together way more frequently because you have a line now that you can employ Tyson Jost, Brandon Duhaime, Nick Deslauriers. Like, they're going to fight people just out of pure boredom in being out on the ice. It's going to be like, it's not going to necessarily be as good defensively, maybe, but maybe they will. But for one thing, they're going to be super annoying to play against.
We don't see Boston again this year, do we? I don't think so.
I don't think we do.
Them twice. I was going to say, if we do, Deslauriers cave Trent Fredericks face it. This is a guy that's going to go out and knock out some teeth. Like, and he can play too. Like, we're talking about here him self-deprecating. Like, there's no one in the NHL that's just strictly enforcer anymore.
Mhm.
Like, you got to be able to play at least a little bit. There's no more like Paul Bissonnets in the NHL. It just doesn't happen. You only have so many people you can put on the team. You got to be able to do something, chip it out,
Yep.
and that's what I've heard about Deslauriers. He can PK, which we obviously need right now. It's yeah. So 3rd round pick, I don't think with the Wild are in a good spot with their prospect pool right now that they can some of these mid-round picks they can use for trades like this.
Yeah, I agree, and it always helps when you have some capital coming back your way because Jack McBain is headed to play in front of a 5,000 seat arena.
Didn't want to leave college.
I mean, it's
listen. I have no idea where McBain is coming from because he wants to play in the NHL. He's scared of the Wild center depth, which is for the foreseeable future Eric Sinek and Marco Rossi.
Yeah.
I mean, Hartman's good. He's not I'm glad he's here. Not a full-time center. That's a guy that you move to the wing when you get another center. So I don't see where McBain is coming from on that. And hey, have fun in Arizona, man. Like, go get your playing time, I guess, if that's what you want. But it's, I mean, hey, now we go after Ben Myers, hopefully. But yeah, and for a second, yeah, hell yeah, see ya. Like,
oh, for sure. Like, just give it to Judd Brackett right now. Like, I don't know if they will use it to get somebody by the time the deadline hits, but
right, Billy G might use that, flip it into someone else. So
certainly could.
It's a big asset. It honestly is. 2nd round picks have a ton of weight right now.
Well, and you look at it too, and it looks as though they'll probably get another compensatory 2nd round pick, depending on
Johansson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Depending on what happens with him, if he doesn't sign, whether or not he is tendered a deal.
I didn't like that pick from the beginning, man.
Yeah.
Everyone said it. Like the draft. I remember watching that draft. They had to scramble to find like highlights of him because they're like, "Oh, this guy wasn't gonna get picked till like the end of the 2nd round."
They're like, who is this? But
yeah, it's just whatever. 2nd round pick, take it back.
Yeah, I'll take the asset. If he doesn't want to be here, take the asset, maybe use it in a trade, or just give it to Judd Brackett and let him do his thing.
I honestly don't blame him for maybe not wanting to be here either, because ever since he was picked, let's be honest, a lot of fans have shit on him. Maybe too much, and he's not a bad player. That's the thing. He's probably going to be like a top 4, at least a top 6 defenseman in the NHL. It's that he'll be fine. It's just the fact that a lot of people here saw the 1st round pick, saw him way overhyped or way overdrafted, I should say. And yeah, I'd probably want to move on too. So just take the pick.
Yeah, it makes more sense to just get the fresh start.
I think that was the old Paul Fenton "I'm smarter than everyone" pick.
Polly Wally. Just couldn't.
Yeah, as good as Fiala's been, we still should have gotten more for Granlund too.
Yeah,
and let's not forget he traded Nino for Rask straight up.
I try to forget that on almost a daily basis, but what can you do? Let's look at some potential trade targets to finish off today's episode. The trade primer for the trade deadline. What the Wild have done so far, what they could potentially do before the deadline hits. We will finish off today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. It is that time of year once again, and your bracket has probably already gone up in flames as March Madness has fully lived up to the name this year. But if you're looking for a spot that has all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your favorite sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. You can find it all at BetOnline, where the game starts. It's time to spring into action. And if you're looking to eat a little better or look a little better, Built Bar is here to help. Now, if you're looking for a little bit of a change of pace from your normal Built Bar routine, Built Bar Puffs are here to give you just that. If you haven't tried them yet, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. As with most Built Bars, Puffs contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Line that up against your favorite candy bar, which usually has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. If you want to get your fill of Puffs, head to built.com right now. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wilds. Once again, a reminder that we will be live at 2 o'clock Central Time to recap everything that either happens or doesn't happen for the Minnesota Wild. So make sure to check that out on YouTube. Live once again for the trade deadline recap here on Locked On Wild. Seth Topol joined by Wyatt Garin to finish things off today. Wyatt, I understand you have some trade targets.
I got a wish list. I do. Do you want
Let's,
them from coldest to hottest take?
Yes, let's do that.
Perfect. Okay. So, one of the things we talked about beforehand, this was a couple weeks ago, was how I really liked Radek Faksa, who plays for Dallas. They went out and got a guy like that in Deslauriers. Check. So, my next lukewarm, not even lukewarm, I think they'll end up doing something like this. I do not want to see Jordy Ben play a playoff game for this team. I really don't. Go out, get a cheap defenseman that can play, maybe even 2 of them. Who cares? Just anyone but Jordy Ben. So, looking at the trade bait list, I really like Justin Braun from Philly. Cheap, makes less than $2 million from White Bear. There you go. The One of Us crowd will love it.
Absolutely.
And he can play top 6. And especially with how, I mean, our blue line got maimed this year. I mean, almost everyone's been out for stretches. So I think it would be foolish to go into the playoffs thinking that our blue line's going to be fully healthy. So I think Braun's a guy that can come in and be a stable force to be able to go into a game and just not be Jordy Ben. And I think if you get Braun, or the other guy I was looking at was Mark Pysyk, who makes even less than Braun. I can play pretty much the same role. I haven't looked at the handedness or anything like that. I didn't get that deep. Just 2 guys that can come in, be depth, and go in and not mess anything up. Pair that with, I believe Kalen Addison's back to healthy, or he should be soon.
Yeah, I think
by the playoffs he will be for sure.
Yeah.
So you want to put some scoring punch on the blue line. Addison, you want to play a little more sound defensively. Go get Braun or Pysyk, slot him in. I think those 2 guys would work out very well here. Especially Braun. I'd love to see Braun here. So that would be my coldest take. I think they'll get a deal done for at least 1 defenseman.
I agree.
Here's my lukewarm take. The Winnipeg Jets have, from sources, have said that they're going to they're going to be real about they're going to be realists about their position right now, and they might start unloading assets. A guy I would really like to see, Paul Stastny. Get that center depth. You know, he could play the middle six. He could play. I mean, I think you put Paul Stastny between Kirill and Zuccarello, you could see some good things happen.
Ooh.
I really like what he could bring to the table. I haven't looked at his contract. I know he probably makes a decent chunk of change, but you got to figure Billy's looking at this center core right now, and he's looking at the face-off percentage. He's like, I got to get a guy that can win a goddamn draw. like it's so, and that's not like Eriksson is a great center. He can't win every draw. Ryan Hartman's playing out of position, and props to him. He should have been an all-star this year. Not a natural center. And then the rest of the centers on the roster are just not going to be guys that can drive a line. And I think he's getting old. I think he has 1 or 2 more good years in him, and I think it would be wise of Billy to at least check in on his availability. The only thing that might stop him is trading in division. Teams hate doing that, but
Yeah.
if the Jets don't see him in the playoffs and it's a rental, I would imagine they wouldn't care if they get assets back. So that's my medium hot take. Ready for the big one?
Hit me with it.
All right. Shout out Jake Jensen, KidGen 10K on Twitter. Go follow him. Great hockey mind. Ricard Raquel, Anaheim Ducks. Give me Raquel. I've been banging this guy's drum since. Ricky Rax is filthy. Absolutely filthy. That's a guy you put in the top 6 right now and just adds that scoring punch. You want to make a run this year, you go out and get him. And I think he'd be had for a 2nd and like a 5th. So that's where I'm at. I would love to see Billy say, screw this, we're going to get Raquel. Because Anaheim's already showed they're offloading talent right now.
Yep.
That's who I want, man. That's my. Oh, we were gonna talk about Fleury too. No.
We'll navigate into that.
Okay. Okay.
I was going to point out what a coincidence in that the Wild just got a 2nd-round pick to add to their draft pick arsenal. What a coincidence!
I don't see it, man. He at this point in his career, he's not. Talbot and Kokkonen are. I mean, if Fleury's here, Talbot and Kokkonen are right there. Like they're.
Yep.
The difference is so negligible that to give up assets, especially a 1st-round pick or a decent prospect, is not what this team can afford right now.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm not on the Fleury wagon myself, just because I don't view it as like it'd be one thing if you were going to go out and get, somebody that's either younger that you can have on this team
right
until Jesper Wallstead is ready, like a Thatcher Demko. That will never happen. But if you're going to go out and make a goalie move, do something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
and
like
no team is going to want to give up a young goalie that is showing promise.
No.
Even Carter Hart, who struggled, he's going to be good. Like, the only way I could see a goalie being dealt to the Wild that I'd be happy with would be John Gibson. And I still don't think the Ducks would do that. Because once again, shout out Kid Jen. John Gibson might be the best goalie in the world right now. That's a hot take, I know. I'm a Vasilevsky guy too, and John Gibson's that good when he's on. So, I mean, if you could do some type of package with Gibson, Raquel for like, I mean, we could get really silly if we wanted to try to throw in 1st round. Like, they got prospects to do it, so it's all a matter of what Billy sees and comes across his desk. I think. I don't think he's gonna be he's not gonna be the Twins. You know, we're not gonna go get Correa and
Right.
Gary Sanchez, but it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, there certainly are plenty of names available, and it's just, I mean, I think there's a lot of, well, Fleury beat us in the playoffs for Vegas, so why couldn't he just do the same thing? But like, let's just for numbers' sake and for stats, I don't know where they rank. Let's just say the Wild goalie tandem is 20th in the NHL right now. Is Fleury like 18th, 17th?
It's so negligible that I just don't see it moving the needle. Like,
Yeah. Well, and I'd rather, it has been at various points, the defense has been the culprit, and the team just getting just straight up getting worked off the puck. Like, if you're going
yeah,
to do something, improve the fight and the bite like they have, and see if the goalie numbers improve. And Talbot has started to rebound over his last few starts.
he definitely has. And it's so easy for people to sit back and blame the goalie. It's just something easy to do, but during that stretch, the whole team was playing like shit. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
It wasn't just the goalies were. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't just there. It wasn't just them. It was a whole team issue. So I think you just gotta, in my opinion, you just say, well, these are our two guys. We're gonna roll with it. Hot hand, honestly. Whoever's hot. Cam's hot right now.
yep.
Give him the net.
I agree fully. And so we'll see how things play out here between now and the deadline. Of course, Locked on Wild will be all over it, and we'll have no shortage of reaction the rest of the week to everything that happens here at the trade deadline. So now that your first listen, well, second listen of the day, second Locked on Wild listen of the day is done. Make sure to keep an eye out for our live trade deadline reaction episode coming up at 2 o'clock Central Time on YouTube. We'll recap everything that happens for the Wild and look ahead to the rest of the season as well. So make sure that you're following along with Locked on Wild wherever you listen to podcasts. Also follow us on social media to stay as up to date on Minnesota Wild news and notes as possible. Make sure to give our friend Wyatt Garin a follow right there in the corner. And we will continue to keep you up to date with everything Minnesota Wild related. If a puck drops, if a trade happens, if big news breaks, Locked on Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.